Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deathgate. Deathgate is an adventure game from 1994, and it's based off of the book series from Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. If you are a guy who has ever read a piece of fiction in the Dungeons & Dragons, specifically the Dragonlance series, you've probably read a book from both of them, because they have written so many. Legend Entertainment in 1994 decided to, after the series was finished, adapt the series into a video game. It's not the first time they did an adaptation of a video game. Actually, later on, they would do one on the Wheel of Time. Except that game is only about the first book, I believe. Maybe the second. So how well does Legend Entertainment adapt 7 books into one video game? Well, they don't. There's a lot that they take out. I'm going to be talking a whole bunch about what they actually do, what's cut, what's changed around, what's smashed together in order to make this an actually cohesive adventure game that is not gigantic, because there's a lot that can be said about this game. Wonderful. So what if you've been here during the preamble? We've been watching the opening cinematic. My copy doesn't really have the opening cinematic play once you start it up, so I'm just playing it on loop separate. So we're going to watch it again. I'm going to start and stop it just to give some comparisons between what's going on in the novel and what's going on in the book.
You all know why we've come here. The patrons have pushed us into a corner. Their magic has grown too powerful to hold in check. These villains are stealing the worship of our own followers. We must do something before they marshal their forces, before they destroy us and all we stand for. We've come to the vortex to destroy the world.
We'll get a little bit more into what the background is between who the patrons are and who these people are. But let's just say there's a war going on, and it's going to involve how the world is created. They're in the vortex. That's also another thing to just keep in mind, that the vortex exists.
Life will be better after the sundering. Our followers will live on in the new worlds of air, fire, stone, and water. Our enemies will be trapped in the labyrinth to contemplate their dark ways. And we will guide the new order into the future. Help me, my friends. Let us summon the world's seal and begin the process of healing. Together all of Earth's elements. As we sunder it, so do we sunder the world.
This seal is video game. In the books, there is no seal, there is no material object that makes the sundering happen. It's just the group here, and, well, the only people who are able to be rendered at this point. They are the ones who collectively cast the spell in order to break the worlds up into its elemental pieces.
Thus we begin a new age.
Also, there's only 5 pieces to the seal. They show this piece and it gives me very Little Big Adventure kind of vibes with the 3D modeling. So that's Deathgate. And it actually goes into what the third book talks about, because it is until the third book that you really learned about what the Sundering is. To spoil it, the Sundering happens. The world gets it's actually planet Earth that gets destroyed and turned into those 4 worlds that you see there. Except there's other worlds. There's more than just, because there's 5 pieces, but there's actually 7 locations that it gets split up into. So there's 4 worlds. There's the vortex that they're in, and what we will see once we actually move over to the actual game screen and get ourselves into it, because we actually start in where that 5th piece of the seal actually is. Let's begin. If I actually click on the window and actually order to do that, hopefully I didn't hit something hotkey wise. After reading the books here, it's quite exciting to see these actual characters like depicted in some way, and there's going to be a little bit of graphic imagery right there. We probably won't see him this stream. But it's like, I know these people because I've read all the books. Lovely. Unfortunately, though, some characters are completely stricken of even their name, so that kind of sucks. But this is a lovely, well-constructed game, and as you saw with the opening cinematic, it's going like, okay, we got some voices even, which 1994 wasn't like uncommon. But even with this game in particular, it's almost fully voiced. So we'll soon, here's all our voice actors. Here's all of our characters. Everybody gets a voice. Like, look at all these people. Again, some people are stricken, and I will mention when those people kind of show up and who those people are supposed to be, because yes, some people are not in this game.
"2,000 years ago, the Sartan Council sundered the world into 5 realms. One of them was a nightmarish prison called the Labyrinth, and into it was banished the entire patron race, your ancestors. This is the place you've always called home, and all you've ever wanted is escape. Your name is Haplo, and you are a patron. Not long ago, Lord Xar, the most powerful patron sorcerer of his generation, broke through the Labyrinth's final gate. In doing so, he paved the way for others to follow. The path was still difficult, but not impossible. Your travels led you to the final gate, where the combined forces of the Labyrinth waited to turn you away. The fight was hopeless. Alone you never would have survived. But then Lord Xar appeared, and with his help you were able to rout the dark monsters of the Labyrinth. What followed is hazy. You remember stumbling out of the final gate, but then you collapsed on the ground, and Lord Xar's concerned face faded to darkness as you lost consciousness.
Yeah, I don't want to restore my old game that I had. Let's begin. We actually just start on the interface. We start right in front of Xar, right here. I won't say much about Xar. He has a lot to say for himself, but it's great to see that, and they also mention the 5 realms, including the Labyrinth. Well, the Labyrinth is technically a realm, the same way that the Vortex is also a location. And then there's this place, which is, well, we'll learn a bit about it. Now, before we go anywhere, one, there's a map, and it kind of gets filled in as we go. We have our menu, we have our status, we have our score. We're able to get 1,500 points, as per adventure games want to do. We can even turn off our character's voice, Haplo's voice, if we really want to. And I suppose back then it would just like save up memory space. So we're all good there. Now the help is actually like really good help. First, maybe this is your first adventure game and you have no idea what's going on. Well, Deathgate also tells us it's a graphic adventure game. That just means we have our pictures there. It's also far more, shall we say, linear than that. There's a couple of puzzles, but you won't find anything like crazy, like obtuse or anything like that. It will go with creative thinking and cleverness with it. I have to click on the text box or it'll go away. Oh, nope, that was it. I thought there was more than just the 2 text boxes. It also comes with a tutorial within the game itself. That's what it means by online. So I could actually go into here. It'll say that it's a 5-minute tutorial. And we'll actually just go through every single thing that you could possibly do in here. We're totally going to do that. So no worries about that. But if you are going to play this game yourself and have no ideas, this is here for you. It's lovely. Yeah, and it uses verb syntax. So it's a little bit more like Monkey Island, or the other one, Maniac Mansion that I'm thinking of. One of those. It gives control of your cursor so you can actually move around, and if there's something that's interactable, you'll see an object name that shows up. Yeah, verb object syntax is what it's called. Anyways. There is a lot of dialogue also in Deathgate. The first thing, let's look at a couple things. Like what's called the glow lamp. We have our lights. The spherical glow. Oop. I don't remember it being that quick. The spherical crystal globe glows with an inner magical light. It's an ancient Sartan artifact. Xar doesn't seem to mind using it, though. There's one of the seal pieces for the Nexus. So, it's a little unclear if the Nexus and the Labyrinth and the Vortex, they all share the same part of the realm, because otherwise there's 3 different pieces. And the other thing about it is, because they have to focus so much on the 5 realms, 5 pieces kind of thing in the game there, it kind of goes against what the original books did, where each realm was a realm because it had a death gate in it. And we will be looking more about that pretty soon, because if we're going by death gates, there's 7. But if we're going by the seal pieces, there's 5. The ancient metal seal piece is inscribed with the naming rune of the Nexus. Anyway, look at our man here. It's hard to look at your lord with an objective eye. You owe him your life. He is an older man, but still very vigorous, seeming to have lost nothing with the passage of years, but nonetheless gaining their wisdom. He's perusing an ancient Sartan text. We can also just click on him in order to get an additional thing, just in case there's something special that we could do with him. Usually with characters, we can talk with them.
Ah, Haplo. Do you feel well enough to talk, my son? I was worried. You took some serious wounds in your dash for the final gate. It was all I could do to repair your heart rune and heal you. The few weeks since you escaped the labyrinth should have been enough time to recover, but we don't want to rush it. I know you have a lot of questions. I'll do my best to answer them, but first I'd like to give you some history. You've spent your life trying to escape the labyrinth and hating the Sartan who consigned our race there, but you don't really know the full story. Even I didn't know everything when I escaped, but I learned quickly. You see this city around us? The Sartan made this. They made it for us, if you can believe it, for when we emerged from the labyrinth, we were supposed to be docile, rehabilitated, brainwashed. Instead, we hate our Sartan jailers more than ever. There are libraries here, stocked with books. Since my escape, I've been studying them. They tell me much, but not all. There are mysteries I cannot explain, but I will tell you everything I've learned. 2,000 years ago, our patron ancestors warred with the Sartan. We were winning, It was only a matter of time until we defeated the evil sorcerers, took our rightful place as leaders of the world, and freed the other races from their slavery to the Sartan. In desperation, a Sartan named Sama hatched a fiendish plan. He intended to sunder the world into 5 realms. 4 of these realms would be homes to the mensch races, elves, humans, and dwarves. The 5th is here, the Labyrinth. It was supposed to serve as a prison for our race.
So again, interchanging the word between the Nexus and the Vortex and the Labyrinth. And you're going to hear the word mensch a lot when referring to these 3. But usually the word mensch is only referred to when we're talking with any patrons or Sartans, really.
They created a magic artifact called the World Seal. With it, they succeeded in sundering the world. Our ancestors were trapped in the Labyrinth, and the rest of the world was broken into the other 4 realms. They planned to lord over the realms and administer the Labyrinth as we were rehabilitated. But something happened. They just disappeared, and with them, all of their good intentions.
And that's a mystery that carries on through the book. Is they succeed in their plan, but you learn that the Sartan have a 3-phase plan, and they get stuck on phase 2. Phase 3 never comes to fruition, which is interesting, and that becomes like the kind of the B plot of, it's not the A plot, it's the B plot of the last 3 books. Is okay, what happened and what can we do in order to make things better?
Without the guidance of the Sartan, the Labyrinth became a slaughterhouse. Its magic made it aware, intelligent, and it wanted our blood. Life was a living hell for our people. But instead of breaking us as the Sartan wanted, the Labyrinth has made us stronger. Many of us have escaped, despite the Labyrinth's best efforts. I go back in every day to aid others in their way. I only needed to take you a few 100 feet. You even demanded that you cross the final gate on your own, without any help, before you passed out. You should be proud. Now, my son, I need you. Since my escape, I have been devising a plan to restore our people to our once glorious position. It is our birthright. To this end, you must carry out a very special mission for me. I need you to go into these realms. You'll not only be gathering information, but searching for the seal itself. With it in hand, I plan to reform the world from the broken pieces that the Sartan left us. But here I've been dominating the conversation. You must be very confused. I'm sure you have many questions for me. I'll detail my plan later.
All right, and then we get our giant piece of information here. So what Xar is telling Haplo to do is something we learn about what actually happens in book 1. Vaguely, cryptically, because apart from this piece, book 1 is not adapted at all. It's the book that they kind of threw out, and which is understandable. Because it really feels like if you were to read one book and only one book in the series, Dragonwing is an independent piece for the most part. Because what Xar tells Haplo to do is not find the MacGuffins in order to bring them back. He tells Haplo, you go into each world and you sow discord in the elves, the humans, and the dwarves. Make them fight each other, make everybody fight each other, make everything worse. Because when you do that, Xar will come into the world and he will solve everybody's problems. He's going to come in and be a messiah figure, and everybody's going to worship Xar, and he's going to amass this massive army across all 4 worlds, do this 4 times, in order to battle the Sartan and gain dominance over all 4 worlds. Yeah, that doesn't happen, of course. Doesn't even happen in the books because of, character development is a thing. So, yeah, now we're just going like, okay, find out what happened to the Sartan. You still had to find that out. At least that's kept consistent because it's a mystery. but also find the seal piece, because we need all the seal pieces.
How exactly did the Sartan sunder the world?
The Sartan commanded their dwarven slaves to forge an artifact called the World Seal. It consisted of 5 metal hexagons, each inscribed with a rune, a symbol, which represented one of the 5 realms. They broke the seal apart, and as they did, the world broke apart as well. It was sundered into the 5 realms, and each seal piece went into the realm that it named. As you see above my head, the seal piece that names the Nexus is here.
Tell me about the other realms.
Certainly, my son. The Sartan sundered the world into 5 realms. They based 4 of them on the elements: air, fire, stone, and water. The 5th, of course, is the Labyrinth. They are all separated by large distances, too far to travel in a lifetime. That's why the Sartan created the Death Gate. Through it, people can travel from one realm to any other.
Now, the thing about why it's called the Death Gate, I really don't remember if it's actually given a reason as to why, other than if you travel through the Death Gate without like proper protection, you just die. Death Gate means like, okay, if you travel through it, that was a book. Yeah, it's like you just die. So really, the only people who are able to go through it are either the Sartan or the patrons. So welcome to the wonderful dialogue that would be around until like 2014. BioWare really kept this kind of kept this dialogue going.
Have you learned anything about the Labyrinth?
Like I explained, the Labyrinth was supposed to rehabilitate our entire race. With the Sartan in control, the test that it administered would have been difficult, even violent, but never fatal. The Sartan disappeared, and somehow the Labyrinth became sentient. Its magic took on an intelligence. It started to kill us, slowly but surely.
In the 6th book, there's an event where it's like, oh yeah, the Labyrinth is trying to drop an entire mountain on the party. So yeah, very true there.
It toyed with us, always gave us just enough hope to keep us fighting. It created environments and monsters that even the twisted Sartan had never dreamed of. But we bested it. We escaped, and more of our kind are escaping all the time. But it is a trickle instead of a flood. Most of our race is still trapped inside. If my plan unfolds as I expect, I will free everyone at the same instant and bring an end to our imprisonment once and for all.
So the timeline between when the Sundering happened and where we are now is a little bit foggy, because they kind of use different numbers there, where they use 2,000 years, but a lot of the books kind of mention this 300-year period. I really don't want to know what to really make of that, where the patrons have been in the Labyrinth for generations, really, at this point. He mentions the trickle instead of a flood. Well, he also does not really mention how the patrons have kind of split into 2 groups based on how they interact with the Labyrinth. Because there's 2 ways of life. One is being a runner, which Xar is, and Haplo and a bunch of other people are, who actually made it to the city, who wanted to escape the Labyrinth. But the others became known as the squatters, who were the people who were like, we are going to try and habitate this place. Which you kind of need both in order to exist. You can't have everybody just like running nomadically against every single threat that the Labyrinth has to offer you, because you're going to die there. So there are like cities and villages and towns that were built in the Labyrinth that are relatively safe, or at least heavily protected against threats throughout.
The Death Gate? What's that?
The Death Gate is a portal. It connects the 5 realms. With a good ship and the right magic, anyone can cross the Death Gate from one realm to any other.
What kind of magic is needed to cross the Death Gate?
It's very simple, yet infernally unattainable. The books describe the necessary preparations. You need a ship, one powered by magic with the ability of flight. You need a steering stone magically treated to guide the ship through the portal. But upon the stone, you also need the naming rune of the target realm. The books state this, but neglect to actually show the runes, as if they were common knowledge. None of the books depict these runes. For years, I've been researching the subject, reading every document, poring over every scrap of parchment, and I believe I finally divined one of the runes, that of Arianus, World of Air. It's the only one I've been able to reconstruct, and it's taken years. I don't even know if it's possible to produce the others, given the pitiful research materials I have. It's my thought that the other runes might lie somewhere inside the realm of air. For some time, I've been planning to send someone there to look for them.
So when it comes to the Death Gate, it doesn't really work that way. The way they kind of describe it in terms of passing through each of the realms. And at this point, the Death Gate is technically closed. It's kind of like a pinpoint kind of idea that you kind of were working with. But I will say, based when you get later on to the series, at least into I'll say the 6th book, they kind of look at Death's Gate when it's completely open, and it kind of works like shifting pictures, like a viewfinder, where it's like, okay, you have this one. Do you want to go here? 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 Kind of works like that, and then you lock onto that picture. You think about it in your mind. You go into the Death Gate with everything prepared, magic and otherwise, that he mentions, and then you're able to go to that specific place. So it's a little bit different.
Do you have a ship?
Yes, the Sartan were kind enough to leave one for us. It didn't have the steering stone that such a ship requires, but I was able to reproduce one. Without the naming runes of the realms, of course.
We'll see this ship, and I have things to say about the ship.
Have you crossed the Death Gate?
No, I haven't been able. I've made preparations, but it's always been my intention to send an emissary, or more appropriately, a scout in my stead. In fact, I was hoping that you would be my eyes in these realms.
And throughout the books, at least the first 4 books, Haplo does send reports back to Haplo at the end of each book before moving on to the next adventure.
Let's go back a step.
Certainly.
What is this place exactly? It's not the labyrinth.
It's known as the Nexus, kind of a way station. This city is where the Sartan was supposed to watch over the labyrinth. I believe they were going to give it to us as a place to live once we had been rehabilitated. It makes a perfect staging area for my plan.
Yeah, so it's pretty much just known as the City of the Nexus. The Nexus is this twilight area that's kind of peaceful, doesn't have anything else going on. In it, the safe haven that the Sartan were going to use on the rehabilitated patron, but that didn't happen. Let's quickly go through all of these. Yeah.
Can you tell me about the realm of air?
The books here are rather sketchy about the realms, but of all of them, the world of air, or Arianus as the Sartan named it, is the one I'm most familiar with. It's made up of many separate continents which float in the air.
Xar pulls out a map of floating continents, each labeled with a strange word, which you assume it's its name. The distinctive shapes of the islands stick in your mind. You can go through and get to Arianus and have the map, and without even looking at this dialogue option, just for everybody's sake.
The lower continents are populated by the dwarves. Those islands are plagued with almost continuous electrical storms. The higher continents, with much better weather, are homes to the humans and elves. Perhaps it indicates a pecking order in the Mensch. Who knows? The books don't say much more about it, regrettably.
Well, I have the book. It's book 1. It talks a whole lot about Arianus there. And also, book 5, which is the return to Arianus. There, after going through all of the worlds at least once. We'll get into that when we get into Arianus, because yes, there is a class system that kind of involves with it, as well as a bunch of other things. Arianus is a very well-built world.
Tell me about the realm of fire.
The realm of fire, or Prian, is a hollow world. Instead of living on the outside of the sphere, as we did on the original world, They live on the inside, along the inner curvature. At the center, 4 powerful suns throw their heat and light upon the ground. I believe it is the largest of the realms, but I know little else about it.
It's a little bit confusing. And there's things about when we get to Prion in this game that they really just skip through. Like, a lot of stuff in Elven Star is just, like, thrown out. Except some of it's really cool. Like, some of it's really good. Alright, Realm of Stone. Oh, the Realm of Stone.
What do you know about the Realm of Stone?
Abarak, Realm of Stone, is not much more than a rock hanging in space. It's full of warrens, tunnels, and lava tubes. From the sketchy notes I read about it, it sounds perfectly horrible. Definitely the worst place to live of all the realms.
Abarak is probably the most depressing and horrible world I have read in a very long time. It's deeply it gets upsetting. It gets upsetting. It's also like extremely important though in the overarching narrative.
Can you tell me anything about the Realm of Water?
Celestra is the realm of water, and in fact it is a ball of water. At its heart is a sea sun which warms and lights the interior. The exterior is completely frozen, exposed as it is to the cold of space. Sea moons orbit the sea sun. They are hollow, living creatures which draw energy from the sun. Inside, the Sartan built cities to house not only the Mensch, but themselves. I believe that they intended to finally live there to administrate over all of the realms.
And just like a bunch of water worlds tendencies, of all the worlds to describe, Celestra is the most confusing to kind of navigate. It's really cool what they tried to do and what they tried to depict inside of the book, but it ultimately kind of becomes meaningless at the end there. Like the sea moons, and they're talking about like the living creatures who are like the suns that move around in that area. But I don't know. Like the more you think about it, the more you kind of think this could have been less complicated in terms of a water world, but it also would have been boring. Like fascinating ideas, just not executed well.
Can we talk about something else?
Of course. What do you want to know?
So many things. Yeah, let's talk about the heart rune.
You repaired my heart rune?
Yes. As the labyrinth continued to attack you, the magic rune tattooed over your heart became weaker and weaker. When I discovered you, it was actually broken.
So I kind of don't remember if this was mentioned in the brief times in the first book, but the heart rune is an important thing by the end of the book series.
As you know, heart runes must be complete to function. They sustain us, protect us. They are like circles. The magic of your being continually flows through it. If it becomes weak, you cannot cast spells. If it ever becomes broken, you fall ill.
You fall ill. Haplo goes through a lot of stuff in these books. So yeah, pay that in mind.
Luckily, I found you in time. I was able to draw upon my own life force to lend to you. It repaired your heart rune and made you strong enough to overcome the final hurdle of the labyrinth.
Pay in mind this. Draw upon my own life force and lend it to you. Kind of a life debt situation, so don't cross Xar. Alright.
How do you get back into the labyrinth to help our people escape?
The labyrinth doesn't mind letting people in. It's letting them out that it doesn't like. I think the labyrinth has something personal against me. It tries to lure me in as far as possible before it throws everything it has at me. Don't believe that I'm not afraid. Every time I enter, I wonder if I'll ever return. I've been able to get the best of that demon place many times, but every trip it gets more devious, more dangerous.
Where did the Sartan disappear to?
I don't know. I don't think their disappearance was planned. All of their documents indicate that they expected to be around for a long time to enjoy the fruits of their labor. It seems that one day they just vanished. I have a few theories. It's possible that they did plan to vanish. They might be hiding somewhere in the realms, using the disappearance as a smokescreen to make us careless. When the time is right, they will return with our deaths in their hands. In any case, I take nothing for granted. I must know where the Sartan went to. I must have vengeance. Our people cry for it. Somewhere in the realms there must be signs, clues. Eventually, we shall discover them, and the trail will lead us to the Sartan. Then we shall destroy them.
Xar has an awesome scene in the beginning of the 6th book that takes all of this energy and uses it wonderfully. Wonderfully.
What were the Sartan like?
I've pieced together a picture from the books I've found. The Sartan were the opposite of us, even physically. As we have black hair with white ends, the Sartan have white hair with black tips. The runes that we place upon our bodies for protection and to enhance our magic, they shun. I believe that while the Labyrinth has forged us into a harder, stronger race, the Sartan have grown softer in their luxurious realms. They will be no match for us. They will look into our eyes and find the mercy they gave us, the hatred we've kept burning for thousands of years, and their own deaths.
I'm going to save the talk between the difference between the Sartan and the patrons and where they came to be and also the magic business. I'm going to save that for later.
Tell me about magic.
Certainly, patrons have magic in their blood. Once we were the greatest sorcerers in the world. If we had learned to work together as the Sartan did, they never would have stood a chance against us. Since then, we have lost much of our skill. We have forgotten many spells because they were useless in the Labyrinth and retained only a very few.
This is just an excuse to learn spells in the game. Because there's really no reason for any of this in the books. It's like you're going to use everything that you possibly can in order to survive. No reason for this.
We never lost our potential, though. To this day, we can cast any spell as long as we know how it is constructed. But we are pitifully ignorant. One of the things we must do before we confront the Sartan again is to relearn the magic that we have forgotten.
All right. We're going to talk about all of this, really, so I don't need Xar to really explain it.
Can you tell me anything about the spells I already know?
I'm afraid that, like most patrons, your repertoire is rather limited. You know only the most basic of spells, heat and cold, normally used to keep yourself alive in the harsh climates that the Labyrinth can produce. They are powerful, but not very versatile.
Yeah, there's no reason for Haplo to only know 2 spells. Really not. Especially when there's a bunch of flashbacks into the Labyrinth, where he's done a whole bunch of other things. Especially one character who is absent from this game. One character who is absent.
Do you know any spells that you can teach me?
Yes, I do. There are 2 spells that I intend to teach you. Identify and Rune Transfer. Both will be very useful in your mission. Identify can supply information about any magic object or spell. If you encounter an unknown object or learn a new spell, but are unsure about its magical properties, simply cast Identify. It will explain everything to you.
Handy. It's also good if you're someone who really likes to dig and experiment with all of the different things we're going to get in the magic system. Identifies a good spell. It's also can be completely useless if you just want to go through the game and collect all the spells regularly.
The second spell, Rune Transfer, is very specific. With it, you can transfer a rune symbol from any object to a magically prepared surface. This will be necessary to place the naming runes of the 4 realms upon the steering stone.
It's the one that we actually need in order to go forward in the game.
After I teach you the spell, I will give you a marker with the naming rune of Arianus upon it. You must take it aboard the ship to the steering stone. There, cast Rune Transfer upon the marker and transfer the rune to the stone. Following that, the ship will be able to take you there, to the realm of air. Regretfully, I do not know the other runes that name the remaining realms. Hopefully in your travels you will discover these other runes. If you do, transfer them onto the steering stone in the same way. The Death Gate will never let you into the other realms if you do not.
Can we talk about something else?
Of course. What do you want to know?
What is your plan?
The Sartans' plan was unnatural. They killed millions of mensch and consigned our race to a living hell. I intend to undo the damage. I want to reform the world.
That is Xar's ultimate plan. Once he has reformed all the worlds, once they worship him, he was going to do the opposite of what the Sartan did. Instead of sunder it, he's going to take all the pieces and re-emerge and pretty much just like to recreate planet Earth. We don't know. We're learning about this now. We really don't learn that until the 6th book, though.
Much like the Sundering, the Reformation will require all 5 of the seal pieces. I have the Nexus seal piece, but I need the other 4. The Sartan have hidden them somewhere in their realms.
This way of doing it is much more convenient to Xar because in the books, he's kind of doing this alone and going like, I have enough magic power in order to reform the entire planet Earth alone. Like, sure you do, buddy. You're not crazy at all.
You must be my agent. I need you to go into the realms and find those seal pieces and bring them back here. When I have them all, I will reform the world, free our people, and bring the Sartan to justice. Now I know the naming rune for only one of the realms. I will give you a marker with the rune upon it. Use the Rune Transfer spell to place it upon the steering stone on board your ship. The stone will then be able to transport you to Arianus, the realm of air. Since I don't know the runes that name the other 3 realms, I can only hope that you will find them somewhere on Arianus. I also wish to know what happened to the Sartan. Their disappearance mystifies me. Finally, I want you to learn any new spells that you come across. It's only through the infusion of new spells that we will be able to build up our arsenal of magic. So, do you understand your mission? Take your ship to Arianus, search for its seal piece and the other realms' naming runes, and gather any information you can about the missing Sartan and new magic spells. When you have finished, come back here, deliver the seal piece to me, and give me your report. Now I shall teach you the 2 spells you will need. Watch me closely.
This is really just like the piece of dialogue that you have to talk to Xar about before moving forward with the game. Xar's hand rises, one finger extends and begins to move in against an unseen canvas. It leaves behind a glowing line in the air. The design follows the graceful movement of Xar's hand. Finally, Xar draws his hand back, but the spell remains floating in the air.
This is the Rune Transfer spell. Study it. Remember it. This next construct defines the Identify spell. Watch me again.
The first spell fades, and Xar traces a new design in the air. This one is very simple and quick to complete. You stare at it and commit it to memory.
That's all, my son. I am entrusting the fate of our race to you. Do not fail me.
He tosses you a stone marker with an intricate symbol upon it, the naming rune of Arianus, you guess, and returns to studying the tome laid on the desk before him. You've learned 2 spells. And now we have the marker. I want your history book.
You do not need this book for your quest, Haplo. I am researching the Reformation, and as this book is very damaged, it's quite difficult. I certainly don't want it damaged any further.
Okay, fine. So, with that, we are able to kind of move. Now, our movement is going to be sometimes in the screen, which is a little bit confusing, but mostly it's just going to be with the directional arrows. So I could go here, which brings us to the final gate of the labyrinth. Lightning strike. Yeah, we have a moment in the beginning of the 5th book where, yeah, Haplo's just chilling out by the final gate because, well, part of the story is going to lead us back here for sure. Got the, yeah, completely unscalable. It's the Impossible Mountains. Anyway, get rid of the lightning sounds. So here's our ship. So it's the ship that's roughly on the 4th book. And it's the ship that Haplo uses to travel between the worlds in book 2, 3, and 4. It's not a Sartan ship. It's an Elven ship because it is from book 1, literally called, reversed, the Dragon Wing. This is the Dragon Wing. So yeah, out of context, it's like, okay, cool looking ship with the business on it, which we can go inside of. Trick of light from the door does nothing to illuminate your ship. You can't see your hand in front of your face. We need something to light it. First puzzle we do need to get out of here. This ship is not what Haplo arrives in Arianus with in the 1st book. They actually don't show what a Sartan ship looks like right now, which is more like geometrical. This is taken at the end of the 1st book from a character that we are going to be seeing maybe this stream, maybe next stream. Because it's his ship, not Haplo's, not the Sartans, no one else's. So where did we get a light? Well, the only time we saw a light was here. We got 2 glow lamps. So what if we took one?
Yes, I forgot that you'll need some light for the ship's interior. I'll still have 1 glow lamp left. Feel free to take that one.
5 points. Out of 1,500. There's a lot. So now we have the glow lamp. We have that. I believe. Now head back into our ship. You carefully place the glow lamp on a mount by the door. With a new light, you look around your ship carefully, identifying the navigational tools provided. In the center, you see the steering stone that has the power to guide your dragon ship through the Death Gate and into the other realms, as long as that realm is represented by its naming rune on the surface of the stone. To the front of the ship, you see the steering wheel. Once you've traveled to a new realm, this allows you to navigate your vessel to places within it. You stand in the cramped bridge of your one-man dragon ship in front of the navigational wheel and steering stone. The other thing about the Dragon Wing is that it's not a one-man ship, because in Book 2, it's used as a refugee ship to carry a whole bunch of people, cargo, supplies, a whole bunch of stuff. Like, the Dragon Wing is big. It's a big ship. So, don't know what's up with that. Really don't. There it is. There's the steering wheel. You don't know of any places to travel to in this realm because apparently we haven't learned anything during our recovery in the Nexus. Sure. So here's the steering stone. You haven't placed the naming rune of Arianus onto the steering stone. Until you do, the stone is powerless to transport you there. So there's the marker. We can't just put it on here. Like Xar said, we need to use some magic. So this is our thing to do here. Here's Haplo's face. Look at him. So we have to use magic on the marker, I believe, and that brings us to the spell screen. There's a bunch to do here. Here's all of these rune markings that we have here. And we pretty much are just kind of connecting pieces of the rune together. So for instance, I could just like click on the rune here, click on the rune here, and I would actually be able to have them see them connect based on where they end up. So if I were to cast it now, I would cast heat, but I don't want to do that. Like there's that one, which I could identify, but it's an unknown spell. so I can't actually do anything. So let's completely reset it. Now you could fiddle around with these and see what combinations you can actually get, or you can just go into the spell list and make it easier to work with. So rune transfer. These two. So let's cast it on the marker. And then we transfer the marker onto the steering stone. $10 points. You call on the power of the steering stone to take you through the Death Gate and into Arianus, World of Air. Your ship arrives in the midst of a terrible storm. Quickly, you look around for a place to land to ride out the weather, but all you see is space. There's no ground anywhere. In Arianus, the Death Gate, if I'm going by my hand, is at the very bottom of the world. So it's in what's called the Low Realm, which is where the dwarves live. Whereas there's a Mid Realm where the elves and humans live, which doesn't have all of the weather bits, which is actually called the Maelstrom. And then you also have the High Realm. The High Realm is not depicted in this game at all. It's cut out completely, except for a little bit of information that we're kind of going to see a little bit later. Suddenly, through the lightning, rain, and wind, you make out a floating island as big as a continent. You pilot the ship towards it and land on bare rock just outside of a cave. I don't remember the massive antenna that's on the dragon wing, because I guess that's supposed to be for the sail on it, but it doesn't actually show the sail. I don't get it. All right, we've landed. We don't have any other places to go, so let's leave. You stand on barren rock under a raging storm. The cave opens into a mountain wall and a ramp rises into your ship. There's also the mountains, short, solid, and rather bare. In the closest, you see a tunnel that runs into the rock wall, as well as these guys, the zingers. Two glowing metal objects sit atop tall poles. Periodically, the storm lashes out and sends bolts of lightning against them. Instead of doing any damage, they simply cause the objects to grow brighter. Just electrical rods. Because the maelstrom that exists on Arianus is a constant severe weather system that brings rain, constant thunder, and lightning. Let's head into the tunnel. This small cavern contains a control panel, several pieces of furniture, and a female dwarf. The dwarf looks up at you in surprise.
Oh my! You're huge! But you're not glowing. Are you a god?
I knew who this was immediately, and was like, okay, that's how you sound. Alright. Now, you kind of have to think about how Haplo would respond to this, and when you're going through the books, Haplo is a rather, in the beginning anyways, a rather cynical individual. But he would never, lord over his patron status on everybody because he was always keeping it hidden. He didn't want anybody to know that he was a patron, so he covered up, and he's a patron, so he has all, the rune tattoos all over his body. So you have all of that covered up.
I'm not so huge. You're just small.
Ask anyone. I'm tall for my height. You are just a giant.
That's a rather unusual greeting. Hello to you as well.
I must have forgotten my manners. Hello, huge visitor. Try not to trip on anything. It must be hard to keep your balance when you're so far from the ground.
I'm 6'4" myself. Sometimes I get what the weather are like up here when nobody has anything to say to me. But yeah, of all the three here, yeah, he's not gonna teeter into the god area.
I'm no god, just a traveler.
A traveler? Nice to meet you. I'm Xar. You're awfully big not to be a god, but you don't act like one. They're always yelling and commanding and taking things. Gods aren't very nice. Look what they did to my electric zinger panel.
Seeing that name throughout the series, book 1, and then she comes back in book 5 as well. To have it just pronounced Jar is a bit disappointing to me.
Electric zinger? What's that?
The zingers are set up on the poles outside of the cave. When the lightning hits them, they suck up the electricity. I think the Kixie Winsy likes electricity or something. After the zingers have sucked up all they can hold, I pull these levers. Then the show starts.
Show? What show?
The zingers go crazy. They start spinning around and shooting sparks everywhere. Most of the electricity gets sucked into the Kixie Winsy, though, through the poles. Then my meters go back down, and I wait all over again.
You mean that's all you do? Sit here and pull levers?
It's not that easy. You have to know the very best time to pull the levers. My family has been pulling these levers for years, and I'm the best lever puller there's been in a long time.
So, the Kixie Winsy, a wonderful creation.
The Kixie Winsy? What's that?
Why, it's the machine. How can you not know about the Kixie Winsy? It's everywhere. It digs our homes out from the earth. It makes water for us to drink and does, well, other things too. It's our responsibility to care for it, so it can care for us as well.
So, the Kixie Winsy is described throughout the series. Book 1 and Book 5 specifically, because that's the Arianus books. It's difficult to describe because it is a continent-spanning machine from the Sartan in order to do a certain job. What that job was kind of is a mystery because the Sartan disappeared. You learn a little bit more, it's like, well, the Kixie Winsy and its operators are waiting for more instructions, but the Kixie Winsy is mainly for gathering up resources, specifically water, to allow for transport between the realms and also between the realms.
This is all very interesting, but can you tell me more about these gods?
Well, they only showed up about 100 years ago. They dropped from the air in a flying ship. We were curious, of course, and were prepared to greet them as friends. But a glowing figure emerged and declared itself our god. At least one of many. None of us glow, and no one had ever claimed to be a god before, so we believed it. Now they've moved in and taken control. Personally, I liked life without all this divine intervention.
Like, Jar saying this is also a little bit like her character, but also not. Because she's supposed to be the level-headed, sensible thinking one of the characters in Arianus. And we'll meet another character very soon who's kind of not, but also is. So her just kind of going like, we believed it, dumbfounded, but believed it. The other thing about this is that this whole situation that we're kind of dealing with in Arianus is game-related, not book-related.
If the figure didn't glow, would you have believed it?
Probably not. If they looked like you, I would have just thought that they were big, but not gods. A few extra feet of height doesn't make you divine.
Fair. See, that's more like her.
If you're so upset with the gods, why don't you just drive them off?
They're gods. You don't just tell gods to go away if they get inconvenient. I might not like them, but they're ours. If they weren't gods, though, you can bet we'd have gotten rid of them long ago.
Like, this is not what Jar was all about. In the first book, Jar is kind of like the second in command to a dwarven resistance who's trying to kind of topple the current dwarven hierarchy that's going on. So she's on top. So she's, of all people, is kind of on top of this, whether it's just like inner dwarven politics or this god's business, she wouldn't be talking like this. She would have been doing something about it.
How exactly have these gods taken control?
They moved into the Kixie Whimsy control room and kicked everyone else out. They're always doing tests and things to it. I don't like them tinkering with the Kixie Whimsy as if they didn't know how to work it. I mean, if you're a god, aren't you supposed to know all that stuff? Anyway, they've also kept us away from the north exit. That's where their ship is. They've always got a guard there to make sure. Like, they don't trust us.
Sometimes Haplo will call people out.
When it arrived, your glowing figure claimed to be a god, and you bought it?
Why would someone lie about that? I wouldn't claim to be a god if I wasn't. Besides, he glowed. The way they explain it, you can't glow if you're not a god.
Sorry there. There we go. That back. Yeah, it's like, okay, he glowed. Then we just kind of switch over there and it's going like,
Nice place you've got here.
Thank you. I share it with Limbeck. He'll want to meet you. I'm sure he'll be delighted to see a visitor. We've never had one before.
yeah, Limbeck is the other character. And then we get to like some weird context clues that come from this altogether. Like,
Is that his shirt hanging on the wall?
Yes, he never picks up after himself. I made that hook specifically so he'd keep his clothes off of the floor, but I still have to do it for him.
Now, this is also Xar's character, where Limbeck is a little bit absent-minded, and Xar's just making sure that he continues to live for another day.
Does that mean you're attached?
Well, yes. Someone's got to look after my Limbeck. He'd fall apart without me.
You must really like this Limbeck.
I'm glad that I can take care of him. He's such a gump sometimes. He gets so involved in his work that he even forgets to eat. I have to bring him in his food. That's why I keep the bread and marmalade handy. It's his favorite.
Another clue, keep that in mind.
Isn't that kind of a limited diet?
Well, it's what he likes, and I have to make it perfectly. If there isn't enough marmalade, he calls it dry. If there's too much, he's so messy that he gets it everywhere. That's why I can't let him make it himself. He always puts far too much on.
Also another clue. Keep that in mind.
What does he do that keeps him so busy?
Mostly he writes speeches. They're supposed to enlighten the masses. He keeps telling people that the gods aren't gods, that he's seen the gods when they weren't glowing. Most dwarves don't believe him. Even I have a hard time, but I support him. He's my Limbeck, after all.
Does he like these gods as much as you do?
He doesn't quite dislike them. He simply doesn't believe in them. He thinks that these gods have been taking advantage of us. We've been serving them when we were meant to serve the Kixie Whimsy. He says that we've been oppressed.
Yes, and Limbeck has a vocabulary that a lot of the other dwarves kind of don't. But that's kind of what makes Limbeck special.
Can we talk about something else?
All right.
Is that really it? I thought there was something
Nice
else.
place you've got here.
Thank.
No, yeah.
Limbeck. I take it that he's another dwarf?
Of course he's a dwarf. What else would I be sharing my quarters with?
This room doesn't look big enough for two.
Maybe not two creatures as big as you. I'll have you know that this is one of the most spacious rooms on Drevlin. We're lucky to have it.
Let's back up a second.
All right.
I've enjoyed talking with you, but I'd like to explore this Kixie Whimsy thing.
Oh, certainly. Say hello to Limbeck if you get a chance. He's just in the next room.
She immediately swings her gaze back to the gauges and studies them intently, totally oblivious to you. Okay, so there's our zinger control panel. The panel controls the zingers outside the cave. Gauges indicate how much electricity the zingers have absorbed, and levers initiate the discharging process.
Don't touch those. You have to have 4 years of training before you can even think about pulling a lever.
She gives you a sullen look and returns to staring at the gauges. Looks like one of the levers is gone, though. Rusted cupboard hangs high on the wall. Perhaps that's the reason that the dwarves don't make use of it. We open it. Rusted shut. You can't force them open. Okay. So, with what Xar said, we have a white shirt, we have the marmalade, and we also have bread loaves and slices. So, let's go about taking the shirt, because he doesn't really care about it. And what it's been hanging on is an elbow pipe, which we can also take for 5 points. The shirt, nothing. The pipe, though, the pipe is important. Because that gives us 20 points now. Now, the marmalade we can also take. And we can also take a bread slice. So remember what Xar said. One application of marmalade is too much. Or too little. Too dry. Too much is kind of what Limbeck always does. So if we were to... let's see. Put the marmalade on the bread slice. Sits in the center looking rather lonely. So let's do it again. It's uniformly covered with it. Just right. This is how Xar would do it. But we actually want... the marmalade is overflowing. Perhaps you've added a bit too much. We want it the way that Limbeck would make it. Too much. So that it could get messy. And we have a simple cot. Alright. So we've done that. Let's go meet Limbeck. There he is. Oh, look at him. Papers and parchments are piled everywhere. In the middle is an intent but confused-looking dwarf. Upon your arrival, the dwarf looks up from his scribbling and gasps.
My word! What are you?
Haplo would return the exact greeting of "What are you?"
I'm Haplo. What are you?
Haplo? Oh, that's your name. Forgive me, I forget my manners sometimes. I am Limbeck Bolt Tightener. Welcome to my home. You're not a god? No, you can't be. You're not glowing. I assume you're a traveler. A traveler from where? Where are you going? Do you know the gods? What do you think of the Kixie Winsey?
Limbeck continues to bombard you with a rush of questions without so much as pausing to breathe. Yeah, this last one feels most like Haplo.
Whoa, take it easy. I think this conversation was a mistake.
Very well. I must get back to my speeches. Feel free to look around.
We do need to talk to him more, but that's kind of... yeah, that kind of feels like the most like what he would do. Let's go back.
Hello again. How can I help you?
Alright. Blech. So many things that we got here.
I'm looking for a piece of something. It's metal, hexagonal, and has a symbol on it. It's very old. Do you know where I might find it?
I wish I could help, but I'm afraid I'm not familiar with anything like that. If it is very old, there's only one dwarf that might be able to tell you something. Old Grawple Rock Digger has been here forever.
Where can I find this rock digger?
Grawple sits in the same place every day, waiting for the Kixie Winsey to be repaired. Each day he sits there, he gets more and more surly. Go north to the intersection and follow the left wall. That will take you to him.
Okay.
How old is Grawple Rock Digger?
He's been here for as long as anyone remembers, long before I was born. He'll tell you he remembers when the Kixie Winsey was built, but that was thousands of years ago. I think what he forgets, he makes up.
Enough about this rock digger. Tell me more about this place.
Certainly. What do you want to know?
Ever heard of the Sartan?
The Sartan? Is that a place? I'm sorry, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's not something that Haplo would actually ask anybody. He would really just kind of beat around the bush in order to be more secretive.
What are you writing?
Speeches. I have to convince my fellow dwarves that these gods aren't what they claim. They've oppressed us for too long. We must break the chains and take back our freedom. I'm just not very literate. I can't put my ideas down on paper very well, but I'm determined.
He keeps writing things, and the constant thing about his speeches is that he takes so long and wants to make them absolutely perfect that when he has to give a speech, it's always unfinished.
Why don't you ad-lib your speeches?
Oh, I couldn't do that. Every idea must be perfectly worded. One misspoken word could have the opposite effect of what I'm trying to achieve. I only deliver my speeches after I'm entirely happy with them.
And unfortunately, he always has to deliver a speech because Xar has to pull him away from writing them in order to give them.
Why don't your people believe you?
I think I'm getting to them. No one is happy with the gods, but it's a different matter convincing them that the gods aren't divine at all.
How are they oppressing you?
They moved in, told us where to work and for how long. Our heritage tells us to care for the Kixie-Winzy. Since the gods came, we haven't been able to do that. They make us use the Kixie-Winzy to produce water for them. Parts of the great machine are breaking down, but unless the part has something to do with water production, we're not even allowed to look at the problem. They tell us where to live, they've broken up families, they keep us from the sacred places like the control room. If they were gods, I would assume that they had their reasons, but they aren't. They are just another race taking advantage of us.
Where'd you get all of these parchments?
I gathered them from all over the Kixie-Winzy. No one reads them. In fact, no one can. They're too old. So I write my speeches on the back of them.
Oh.
What makes you so sure that the gods aren't what they claim?
I've seen them. Without the glow. I discovered that it's artificially produced.
It's not natural, eh? How do they make it?
It's magic. According to some of the older dwarves, everyone used to be able to use magic. They've cast a spell to make themselves glow.
How did you learn this?
When the gods arrived, they dropped from the sky in a flying ship. After they moved in, I snuck aboard the ship. I actually saw one of them, not shining at all. He was moving his hands in some intricate motion over a bunch of little statues. When he was done, the statues glowed brighter. I must have gasped, because he immediately looked over at me. I ran, and he never found me. But ever since, they've posted a guard outside the ship.
So this story feels like they took Limbeck's backstory from the first book and just kind of reworded, retouched it a little bit. So the whole thing about Limbeck is that he is a dwarf who, even though his lifestyle and everything about him is kind of set in stone of just take care of the Kixie-Winzy, you don't have to think about anything. He is inquisitive, which is a little bit taboo. He always asks why. He wants to know more. He wants to be more knowledgeable. That's kind of his character trait. So, in the flashback, learning more about Limbeck, he's actually kicked out of school for asking why, and eventually, while walking around one of the protected areas of Drevlin, decides to go out because he notices something in the distance. He notices a flying ship, or something in the distance, which turns out to be a ship, which he goes in to investigate and finds, well, other people that are not dwarves. And I feel like they took that story and repurposed it for the sake of here.
A flying ship?
Yes. One of the byproducts of the Kixie-Winzy is water. For their own reasons, they pump the water into the ship and leave with it, only to return a few days later with new gods and an empty ship.
The way that he says, return with new gods. So the whole thing about Arianus is that water is the most precious resource there because water is extremely scarce. It's produced by the Maelstrom and by the Kixie-Winzy on the low realm, because otherwise the mid realm and the high realm actually have no water. So in terms of like currency and trade, whenever you're doing like a job or a task or anything, you're actually rewarded with like a barrel of water in order to continue living. So that's kind of what happens there.
They're guarding the ship now, hmm?
Ever since my excursion, they placed one guard outside of their ship. Because dwarves tend to be fairly noisy, even when we're sneaking around, the gods put someone there who has very sensitive hearing. His ears can detect the slightest sound of movement out of the caves toward the ship. Consequently, no one's gotten anywhere near it.
Keep that in mind. That's a clue of what we need to do, of something we need to do.
Isn't that enough to convince the other dwarves that they aren't gods?
I haven't told them. It might go against their beliefs to the extent that they would just stop listening to me. I simply can't risk it. The only way to convince them would be by removing the god's glow. Once my fellows have seen beyond the artificial shining, they will rise up and cast them out. I can't figure out how to do that, though.
Let's talk about something else.
Very well.
Let's get back to talking about this place, shall we?
Certainly. What do you want to know?
What is this place?
This is one of the sacred places of the Kixie Winzy. The Broom Closet. I'm lucky enough to have this place to work.
Cool. That's all for this. Really. But although I believe the broom closet is actually going to book 5. Because I think technically this is like because they skip over so much of like book 1. Book 1 almost doesn't exist. This Limbeck is supposed to be book 5 Limbeck. When he kind of takes over as the leader of the dwarves and whatnot, even though that's really not an important thing inside of this game. Like his character development is weird because he is very inquisitive. He wants to know why. He wants to know more. He learns that there's something else out there that he wants to explore. So over the course of like the events of the first book, he gathers with the rest of the party. He is also the one who finds Haplo. Also, that's a key thing. He finds Haplo when he crash lands on Arianus for the first time in the first ship he actually gets from the city of the Nexus. So this whole conversation is also weird because Haplo and Limbeck already know each other, but they can't for the game's sake. So all the events in the first book happen on Drevlin, which allows for the group to go and escape from the low realm, back up to the mid realm, and that's the first time that Limbeck actually sees the rest of the world of Arianus, which should be like a revolutionary moment for Limbeck, except for like a majority of the back half of the book, he kind of is just in a state of shock. There's too much information, too much sights, too much sounds, too many things, too much stimulus, that he kind of just like goes catatonic. Especially when they go to the high realm in the first book. Like he's just kind of with them along for the ride and everything that happens there. So that when the first book kind of ends, well, he's dropped back off on Drevlin and we don't hear from him again until the 5th book. When it's like, yeah, he's gotten over his shock. But he's still kind of the same old Limbeck. Kind of weird. This question, what exactly is it? It's gonna haunt me.
What exactly is the Kixie Winzy?
The Kixie Winzy is everywhere. It's all around us. The humming you hear is the Kixie Winzy at work.
It's an eldritch machine.
What does it do?
It serves the purpose of the Mangers. Long ago, the Mangers built the Kixie Winzy and asked us to care for it. We have done so ever since.
In other words, you have no idea what the Kixie Winzy does.
Well, no. It isn't for us to know. Our purpose is to monitor and care for the Kixie Winzy. The gods don't seem to know what it does either. Ever since they moved in, they've been running tests of all sorts on it. They've restricted everyone from the control room where they base their tests.
Yeah, this control room as well, we'll briefly see it, is not the same as the actual control room that we see for the Kixie Whimsy. It's, yeah, they kind of skip over that section as well.
These mangers, are they still around?
No. The mangers have been gone for many, many years. Some of the young ones don't even believe in them anymore. Only stories and legends keep the memory of the mangers alive.
You can assume who the managers are.
How big is this machine?
Larger than anything. No matter where you go, the Kixie Whimsy has been there first. It digs tunnels and fills them in according to its own whims. We live in the chambers that it builds. If it fills up our homes, we find somewhere new to stay. Its controls and instruments are scattered throughout the entire continent.
Yeah, like the entire dwarf existence is based on what the Kixie Whimsy decides to do each day. So yeah, like you said, if it builds up chambers, it's like, hey, this is a place I can live. But eventually, the Kixie Whimsy will rotate and just kind of change its ideas and go, well, I don't need this space anymore, so I'll fill it up, and that just isn't. And while that's happening, it's like, oh, we gotta move. Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about something else.
Certainly. What do you want to know?
All right, so let's get into some puzzle clues.
What is that you're using for a candlestick holder?
It's all I could find. If I had a better candlestick holder, you can bet that I'd be using it.
So, pay it in mind, if we find a candle holder, we gotta give it to Limbeck.
That's a mighty big jug of ink you've got there.
I found that jug of fast-drying ink quite a while ago. Despite the amount of speeches I write, I've only used a small portion of the ink the jug contains. I believe it will last indefinitely.
And remember that there is ink.
That's all. I have to go.
Very well. I must get back to my speeches. Feel free to look around.
Yeah, so there's the ink here. Because, yeah, if we have one piece of pipe, we're probably going to want another piece of pipe. So there's Limbeck. Yeah, he's overall, like, he's an endearing character. But overall, he doesn't have a lot in terms of his character development. Like, there should have been. But they kind of left him as just kind of the same old person by the very end of it. So, like Limbeck said, we have these 3 tunnels. If we follow the left wall, so this tunnel here, then we should be able to see Grawple. This is an instance where we can actually go to one of those 3 locations using the actual screen and not the directions. This character here, Grawple, is not from the books. He is game exclusive. He has a pipe. And he also has another pipe and a box. Ooh, we can just listen to him? His continuous diatribe includes some topics as how good the old days were, how the young dwarves don't have the respect for the Kixie Whimsy they should have, and other standard cranky old dwarf complaints. I'd be cranky if I was being dripped on constantly.
What the heck do you want, you overgrown, dim-witted god wannabe? And speak up!
Nice stool. I like that, well, especially with Haplo, he would kind of go into this kind of go down to his level.
I don't want anything, you squat, ugly old dwarf.
Then why are you wasting my time? Get out of here, you festering pile of refuse!
Good talk. All right, let's try it again.
You again? I thought even someone as thick as you would realize that I don't want to talk to you. What is it this time?
Why are you sitting beneath that dripping black gunk?
I'm not moving until the Kixie Whimsy is fixed, and that's final. If dripping gunk isn't going to make me move, you sure aren't.
Dripping. Yes.
Are you Grawple Rockdigger?
No, my name's not Grawple Potlicker, you rockhead. I'm Grawple Rockdigger. Who's asking?
That's what I said, Grawple Rock Digger. Can't you hear very well?
What did you say? Speak up. I can't hear very well.
I said your name was Grawple Rock Digger.
I know my name is Grawple Rock Digger, Dirt Rag. I told you that.
My name is Haplo.
Flappo? Interesting name. I wouldn't want to be saddled with it, though.
Even Flappo is a better name than Grawple Rock Digger.
Then it's a good thing my name isn't Apple Snotfinger. Sheesh.
Never mind. Let's not worry about names.
Fine. You brought it up.
Nice stool.
There's no pool around here. What are you, blind?
No, I said stool. What are you, deaf?
Can't understand a word you said. New to the language, are you?
Could I ask you a few questions?
Listen, I'm sitting under a broken pipe that's dripping black goo on my head.
Dripping.
And the gods have commanded everyone to stay away so they can't fix the problem. And you want me to be friendly? Answer all your questions with a smile? Well, I'll tell you what. Until the Kixie Winsy is fixed and those gods are gone, I'm not talking to anyone. No stories, no questions, nothing.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, no stories, no questions, nothing. So here's all the questions you can ask Grawple.
Why are you so grumpy?
Wait a second. That's a question. If you're trying to trick me, it won't work. I'm not saying anything.
I'm sure you're not.
What's wrong with the Kixie Winsy?
A length of pipe is rotted away. I had to shut the main valve to keep it from spewing black gunk all over the place. So until the pipes are repaired, I can't risk reopening the valve.
Why don't you fix the pipes?
It's not my job to fix it. Even if it was, I'd need something to fix it with.
What about that box labeled pipe repair on the floor?
Everybody's rummaged in that box taking what they want without regard for the fact that the Kixie Winsy might actually need it. At one time there were 5 pipe fittings in the box. Now there's only 1.
What became of the missing pipe fittings?
Who knows? Some folks have absolutely no consideration. They took my pipe fittings for one silly purpose or another. Did they ask my permission? Not once. Why, the gods even made off with one of them. Even if I could get those other pieces back, I'll never see that one again.
Wait a second. What exactly are you holding in your ear?
It helps me hear. It's a pipe fitting. I guess I got it from the box.
Tell you what, if I repair your pipe, will you tell me what I need to know?
Why not? Fix my pipes and I'll answer your questions afterwards. As long as the gods are gone as well. I don't think very well with all of these walking lamps about.
Fair enough.
I don't think the pipe helps your hearing all that much. Can I have it?
Very well, as long as I have your word that you'll use it to repair my pipes. Will there be anything else?
Let's start over. We seem to have gotten off on the wrong foot.
Have you looked at your overgrown feet lately? Wrong feet are all you have.
You won't talk to me until the gods are gone? Isn't that an awful lot to ask?
Who's asking you? As far as I'm concerned, you can bump your head on every tunnel ceiling you find until you realize that I'm not going to talk to you.
I almost don't want to ask him this question because it's going to be pointless, but...
I'm looking for a seal piece, a hexagonal metal artifact with a symbol etched into it. Maybe you could tell me where I could find it.
I may have seen something like that. Doesn't matter, though. You obviously want to see it for yourself, and that's impossible. As I recall, there used to be a tunnel that led where you want to go, but the Kixie Winsy filled it up a long time ago. There's no way to get there anymore.
If the Kixie Winsy filled in the tunnel, couldn't it just as easily dig another?
And how are you going to convince the Kixie Winsy to dig where you want it to go? The gods have been trying to control it for years, and they've gotten nowhere. Besides, I'm not going to tell you where it is until my pipes are repaired. Fact is, I've said too much already.
Mm-hmm.
Who needs this attitude? I'm leaving.
Fine. I'll just sit here under my broken pipe. You go have a nice life.
So at least we get the pipe from him, and we can pick up the pipe that's in the box. Now we got 3. We need 2 more, apparently. 5 pipes? But yeah, now he's just gonna... Probably been holding that way too much that all the joints are locked up in his old body. See ya, Grawple. We're gonna go somewhere else. So, that's the left tunnel. We can go to the center, we can go to the right. The right... Well, there's our glowing buds. This is supposed to be the control panel. Like, this is... The brains of the Kixie Winsy are supposed to be here. Which is not true. The 5th book, you do get to go into the actual control room. And it's not this. Certainly not this. You don't see any way to control it. Yeah, but the gods are here, so we literally can't do anything. So yeah, nothing we can do in this place. So, 3rd tunnel. Look at this Chad. So he's the one who's supposed to have like really good listening. So we can't go in the direction of the ship even if we wanted to. You begin to walk into the shadows of the cave hoping to sneak by the glowing guard. Before you've taken more than a few steps, the god cocks an ear in your direction and strides towards you. You quickly backpedal and eventually the guard stops following you. So at least it's not a death in this game. There are a couple of death scenarios in this game there, but it's rather kind. We got a gauge. Broad range of acceptable temperatures, but has a clearly defined red danger zone at the hotter extreme. A sleeping dwarf who is really no threat to us whatsoever. Alarm. Includes both a temperature sensor and feedback gauge. An alarm for emergency situations. So here is the sensor. We got to do something with this because we want, based on the gauge, to go to the hotter areas there. So, what if we cast some magic on the sensor? The magic being... Oh, not that one. One I made earlier. Heat. Let's do it. You hang the heat rune construct in the air. As soon as you have completed the glowing lines of the spell, the temperature sensor begins to smoke. Gage's needle jumps into the danger zone and the twin bell alarm sounds. This rudely awakens the sleeping dwarf, who immediately panics. The commotion attracts the glowing guard, who is covering his ears in pain. He screams at the dwarf to stop the alarm, but the dwarf appears as helpless as the guard. Look at his bum. His attention is completely focused. A dragon could walk by him without his noticing. Teetering precariously on the crude wooden chair, the dwarf flails his arms in the air. He yelps and howls, but you can barely hear him over the clanging alarm, which allows us to go forward. You find it quite easy to sneak by the guard while he's busy trying to get the alarm to stop. The ship's deck overlooks the dwarven caves. A rope ladder drops to the ground and stairs lead elsewhere on the ship. We got stairs to the elf ship. Leads up to private quarters and down into the ship's hold. We can climb the stairs, which we will choose to do. Tiny, which emphasizes how messy it is. We got wizard stuff all over the ground, and on the table. simple and poorly made. But you can see that we got figurines right in the middle. All of them are miniature elves, and they all grow brightly. Versus the bed, bolted to the floor. The ship's wizard lies sprawled on a cot, snoring away. With every exhalation, you smell the strong odor of wine. This right here. Filled with a strong wine, even the fumes make you feel rather heady. So let's take it. Not much else we can do. We head back down there. Now we have stairs up here, but we also have stairs down, which we do have to use the arrows in the middle of the directional in order to go down to. Slaves in this room power and guide the ship with the help of magic provided by the ship's wizard. Yes, and the thing in Arianus is the elves love capturing humans and using them for slaves. These slaves are the first you've ever seen of the mensch race called human, and you're a little taken aback by the similarity they have with your own people. Aside from their mongrel hair colors and their lack of heart runes, humans appear almost identical to patrons. You might be able to pass yourself off as one of their kind. Now, Pablo in the books knows this from square one because he has to like cover all of his runes so people don't like question him and it's like, why do you have all these tattoos on you? So he already passes off as a human. And that's because in the history of Earth, technically, patrons and Sartan are kind of an advancement of the human race, a little bit. They don't really dwell on it too much, other than it's like, yeah, they're just human with advanced magical capabilities. We got our slaves. We got our stairs. Slaves don't even look in your direction. Perhaps they are afraid of elven reprisals. More likely, they're just too tired for conversation. The wooden devices poking from the hull are not actually oars. They control the altitude and position of the ship's wings, which navigate the vessel when aloft. So the airships are not controlled directly by the slaves. They're actually controlled by the ship's wizard in that case, as well as there's this whole mechanical, magical business that usually happens on the bridge of the airship, which they do not depict in this game, where the navigator is kind of hooked up to all of these cables in order to actually control and steer the ship. It's not as simple as just like, oh, I have a steering wheel and I'm gonna go woo woo. No, like they really overcomplicate like what an airship is able to kind of do in order to ground it a little bit more. I'm not sure. But one of these guys apparently is a duke.
Who are you? Are you a slave? I don't recognize you and you aren't chained. I certainly hope you aren't an elf sympathizer.
I almost want to do this line just to hear Haplo go Patui. Also, apparently this is how you spell it. Yeah, let's hear it.
No, I hate the elves. I spit on them. Patui.
Yes, quite. Patui.
Patui. There you go. And there's so much context that is left on the floor. You have no idea. Haplo would not say this line. Wow, I really chose the wrong line because this is really off.
I really am here to help. Tell me what I can do.
Very good. Do you have anything capable of cutting these chains? Do you have an escape plan?
Because Haplo is not in the business of helping people. Like, if it doesn't directly help Xar, he wouldn't help any of these people. The jokey ones, yeah, I was gonna go off of it as a joke, but no, Nothing really here.
Not quite. Not yet, anyway. Could you answer a few questions? It might help.
I suppose I have little choice. I have to trust you. I've been here too long and hope is wearing thin. My name is Andrews. I'm King Stephen's cousin, a duke.
And King Stephen gets mentioned for the first time.
Why are you here?
It's a long story. I was leading my people against the Elven forces on one of the smaller Volcarian isles. We were greatly overmatched, and they defeated us easily. They killed most of my army and took the rest as slaves, including myself. Luckily, they didn't recognize me as the king's cousin. I would be more valuable as a hostage for ransom than as a slave.
I believe Andrews is also game specific and not from the books. Because it's very easy to just make a cousin in order to connect him to Stephen.
Who are these other people?
Members of my army. Now, like myself, slaves to the elves. Although the ship is powered mostly by magic, it requires manpower to steer it. Following the elves' commands, we manipulate the ropes you see here, which change the attitude of the wings. That's what we do. That's all we do.
What's the story behind these gods?
Drevlin is important because the Kixie Whinsey, as these dwarves call it, pumps out water as a byproduct to whatever else it does. Water is scarce throughout the realms. In order to control this water source, the elves have convinced these gullible dwarves that they are gods. Their claim is based on a simple glow spell dreamed up by the ship's wizard. The crew is fairly small, only about 4 or 5 elves, but they are spread thin throughout the caverns. In order to maintain the spell, the wizard has created miniature statues that he uses as substitutes. He keeps them all aboard the ship in one place. As long as the glow spell lasts on the statues, no matter where the elves are, they continue to glow, and the dwarves continue to believe that the elves are gods.
Why haven't you been rescued before now?
When elves capture humans, they divide them into small groups aboard their fleet of flying ships. That way, rebellions are manageable and usually non-existent. Aboard these ships, slaves are impossible to track. Even if there was a plan to rescue us, they'd never be able to single out this particular frigate.
It's kind of amazing with the elves across the worlds. Yes, definitely. This is one of their series that has no connection with D&D. But they definitely pull the elves as being a lot more militaristic in this series compared to anywhere else. Including like their magic system is more about mechanics than it is about anything else. Because even in the other worlds, like here they're very militaristic army with their armies, their monarchy, and everything like that. The other book they're more focused on business. And then book 4, they're very political but also traditional at the same time.
If King Stephen knew you were here, could he rescue you?
It's possible, I suppose. If you can get to my cousin and tell him that I'm being held prisoner here on Drevlin, he would do everything in his power to rescue me. You'll need something to convince him, though. Go to Yollandia, the 4th island. Give this to the king. The ring should be enough to convince him to believe you.
It's surprising that this guy would be able to hide a ring from the elves there, but it's something that we have.
That's all. Thanks for the information.
As you wish. But I can only hope that you will return to aid us.
And so we get finally our second location that we can go to, from Drevlin all the way up to Yollandia. Yeah, try not to. It is Tattered Jacket. That's all we need to know.
Greetings again, stranger. Can I help you further?
What am I supposed to do again?
That's all.
As you wish.
All right. So now that we have the ring, we really have no other business on Drevlin right now. We just have to sneak back against our glowing bud. And just head back to our ship. Past Limbeck. past Jar, and head back to our ship. And on the steering wheel, and now we can actually look at the world map there, or half of it. Because even the mid-realm is not just these two isles. We will never see the elf kingdoms. We won't see anything else. There's only this other one right at the top. So let's head to King Stephen. Get his conversation over there. There we go. Castle. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. The king's castle is constructed of stone. It is a stout fortress designed to repel invaders. Hello, sirs. 2 sentries guard this gate to the castle. The path winds around the castle wall, which we can even go into, but we can still use the arrows.
Why are you sneaking around on royal grounds, knave? What's your business here?
Hello. Now, if anything, Grawple doesn't like to cause trouble.
I'm here to see the king. Would you tell him I'm here?
You and everyone else in the kingdom. Now, if I start making special trips to tell the king you're here, I'll have to do it for everyone else. If you had real business with the king, you'd have an appointment. Now just turn around and go back the way you came.
How do you track appointments there, sir?
You don't understand. The king isn't expecting me, but I've got to see him. His cousin is in danger.
Is he in danger of running out of money? He must be pretty desperate if he's enlisting help from the likes of you. Do you have any proof? A signed note from the Duke? Anything?
Never mind. Your intimidating presence has overawed me to the point where I've totally forgotten why I came here.
You'd better keep a tight grip on that head of yours. You might forget it somewhere, or someone might forget their manners and take it from you. Now be off with you.
Mm-hmm. So instead of that, we have to give it to the guards and go, "Hey, cousin." You hand the Duke's ring to the nearest guard. He examines it carefully, then eyes you with suspicion. Somewhat forcefully, he offers to escort you inside. Doesn't seem to you like you have much choice. Soon you enter the royal throne room. You stand in front of King Stephen himself. Once a renowned warrior, he's older now, but remains a powerful and formidable man. He shuns royal robes in favor of battle armor as if he's ready to lead his troops to war at any second. He sits comfortably on the throne and looks at you with a light smile. Beside him hovers a brown-robed wizard. He casually introduces himself as Trian, the royal magician, but at the same time, he watches you warily. Trian is a little bit of an involved character, but he just doesn't get any lines in this game.
What do we have here? A brigand who's stolen my cousin's signet ring? Someone who has kidnapped the Duke? What do you want from me, ransom? I must warn you, I don't deal with traitors to the crown. It's hard to talk business with someone who's missing a head. Now that we've dispensed with the preliminaries, tell me why you're here.
First off, so the depiction of Stephen is great here. I'm all for it. The problem is that Stephen and Haplo, I don't think ever talk to each other. Like, even in the 5th book, like, Haplo's name is mentioned, but I don't think they're ever in the same room with each other. Maybe, I don't remember, Trian passes, I think Trian and Haplo cross paths, but with Stephen, definitely not. Nothing now, thanks for your time. Yeah, it's really just like, get to the point there.
Your cousin gave it to me to substantiate my story. If you'll allow me a couple words between threats, I'll relate the facts.
Indulge yourself, my friend. I'm all ears.
Yeah, we don't need to antagonize the king.
Well, it's like this.
You explain Duke Andrews is rotting in the slave galley on Drevlin. You're quick to add that you can't guarantee how long the ship will remain there. You suggest that the king sends his forces to rescue the Duke immediately.
I appreciate the information, but there's little I can do. Drevlin is the elves' main source of water. They guard it jealously. My armies wouldn't make it anywhere near the ship that Andrews is trapped aboard. There is another way. If my cousin is out of the elves' clutches, we will be able to free him. Somehow you have a way to get in and out of Drevlin undetected. Return there, get that slave ship to lift off, to go back to the Tribus Empire. I don't know how, but you must do it. Their ships traditionally follow a route through space that I control. We will set an ambush for it. As soon as we see the frigate, we'll box it in. Those ships are usually manned by skeleton crews. We shouldn't have any trouble wresting control. After the ship is ours, we'll bring it here and free all of the slaves on board, including my cousin. You are now my agent. If you are able to pull this off, I'll make it worth your while. I'll inform my men that you represent my authority, just so you won't run into any trouble. We are at war, you know, and my men are very suspicious of potential spies. Good luck, my friend. I hope to see you back here soon.
The guards, a little less roughly this time, escort you out of castle and back to the main gates. All right. So we still have to figure out a means of rescuing them, though. So we can't just go back to Drevlin because we actually haven't done anything. So,
If you had real business with the king, you'd have an appointment. Now just turn around and go back the way you came.
okay, I'm going to go around and go left instead. So this is the path that they're able to go around. A window in the castle wall is covered by a warped wooden shutter. Bushes and trees have overgrown the path. There's a shear up there, which we can totally take. It's half of a set of old rusty garden shears. The connecting bolt sticks out of the center. I might take the... yeah. Well, anyway. You can open the shutter, but through a crack between the shutter and the wall, you spy a stout bar on the other side. It holds the shutter closed, and it's this little thing right here. But the shutter has warped away from the stone wall. You see a stout bar. It holds the shutter closed. So, what if we... Can't open the shear. Open... Yeah, it's a unique verb that I gotta use here. Lift the bar with the shear. Boop. Slide the garden shear into the crack and made by the warped shutter, just under the bar from the other side. With a quick flick of your wrist, you lift the bar out of its brace and send it clattering to the floor. So now, you can open the shutter and get different font. As you start to swing open the shutter, you see someone entering the room beyond. You close the shutter to its original position to watch the approaching figure through the crack. When you get further into the room, you recognize him as Trian, King Stephen's royal wizard. Trian walks up to a tapestry hung on the wall and, with a fluid expert motion, weaves a rune construct in the air. The spell sinks into the tapestry and somehow changes the image. It looks perhaps a bit more real than it did before. Trian rocks right into the picture, becomes part of it. He speaks with another figure inside, an elf prisoner in a dungeon, and then departs, both the tapestry and the room. Immediately, the tapestry fades back to a dull imitation of reality, no longer a doorway into another world. So again, Trian is doing stuff, but we just don't get to hear from him. But we did learn a new spell. We'll see that spell very, very soon. It feels weird being able to just go into the room right after Trian, but we can, and we're supposed to. You slip through the half-open shutter into the chamber beyond. This living chamber is reminiscent of a library. Obviously, it belongs to someone of learning. This is Trian's room. Around here, we got the furniture, tasteful and expensive. We have the tapestry. It depicts a dungeon cell containing an elven prisoner. We also have a candle holder. Simple silver candlestick holder. Well, I know who will want that. The glow lamp, as well as a bookcase. You scan through the collection of books, but find only one that interests you, a tome entitled Tower of the Brotherhood. You can even look at it. So this book is mentioning the stuff about the High Realm and who inhabits the High Realm, the Mysteriarchs. They're pretty much the people on Arianus who have the highest magic ability, who decided, hey, we're kind of done with the Mid-Realm and all of these other things. And because we're seen as a threat, we're just going to leave. We're going to go through what's called the Firmament, which is this kind of like icy barrier that you can navigate through, and we're going to just inhabit the High Realm. You'll never have to hear from us again. As we were forced to rely on the trade of contraband, the smuggling trade, and then we get to learn about the Brotherhood as well, which was it mentioned? No, it wasn't mentioned yet. It isn't mentioned yet. But here is the first mention of the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is a guild of assassins, and it's going to be our next location that we get to after we're done kind of this little arc that we're working with here. Over the course of thousands of years, the Brotherhood has amassed a fortune sufficient in size to buy and sell most kingdoms a few times over. In addition to the money have come relics, treasures, and information, surpassing the wildest dreams of any museum or library. But when it came to safeguarding these precious possessions, the Brotherhood turned to us. They sought our assistance in the creation of a magic fortress in which their operations could be centralized and their treasures stored. At that time, and after much debate, we sent them packing, only to ultimately discover some advantage in assisting them. For the Brotherhood had exactly what we needed: limitless funds and strong connections to every market. Not only were they willing to give us enough to buy 10 times what we required, they would make the elusive suppliers available to us. So we agreed. And then it talks about the Tower of the Brotherhood. Many of us view the task as an intellectual challenge. The magics required to build such a fortress would involve spell merges and constructs heretofore unknown. We see it as a way to increase our knowledge and enhance our abilities. It was a deal with the devil, of course, but never before had we been able to concentrate so many diverse talents on a single goal. The potential for unparalleled growth was enormous. The construction itself was relatively simple. We incorporated enough secret passages and magic portals to the fortress to keep even the most paranoid assassin happy. Merely to open the front door requires an intricate and exhaustive ritual. The door could have been made easier to operate while equally secure, but the members of the Brotherhood wanted the doorway to feel complex. Oh well. They're the ones who now have to remember half a page of nonsense gestures simply to enter their home. And then it talks about the Vault. The Brotherhood's ongoing quest to gather all of the certain artifacts in the realms have left them with a number of priceless pieces. One of our top priorities was to build a storage room to house them, something completely secure. We thought long and hard about the best way to protect their treasures. Eventually, we all agreed that the safest place to put them was the Otherwhere. So, the game goes about explaining the Sartan and Patron and kind of the magic system that is covered in multiple appendices across these books. As, well, I'll let the book kind of explain first. The Otherwhere is a place between realities, a place of possibilities only. Every possibility exists there, however remote. That's what a wizard draws upon when he casts a spell. Say, for example, that he wants to create light in a dark room. In the Otherwhere, the possibility exists that the room is already lit. With the spell, he bends this possibility into this reality until the room is lit. All magic is merely the changing of reality by capitalizing on a possibility that already exists. So, the magic system in the Deathgate cycle has to do with possibilities. If a possibility exists somewhere, you can do it. You just have to be able to figure out how to do it. They play with this ability there in order to pretty much just do like any sort of magic that you can possibly do, including create places where no other possibilities exist. So like in the I think it's in the 6th book, where a couple of characters are jailed. They could totally break out if their jail was not in a place where the possibility of escape didn't exist. It was impossible to get out. Every creative idea exists there. When an artist dreams of something new, he makes a pocket in the Otherwhere that holds his idea. The possibility that it exists in this reality, however remote, is never nothing. Every painting, every picture is a window into the Otherwhere. The word Otherwhere is never used in the books. I don't think so. They just talk about the possibilities. It was this property that we decided to use. Specialized magic allows us to put real things into the Otherwhere and summon them out again. The simplest form of this magic is the Create Reality Pocket spell, although the name is a misnomer. It does not actually create a reality pocket, it merely causes the picture to become a bridge or passageway to the pocket that already exists inside the Otherwhere. Many wizards already use the spell to store items inside the Otherwhere, using a painting large enough to walk through. The Brotherhood's vault was designed to function as a step beyond this. So the vault is a cool place that's kind of underutilized in the book there. But there's a reason why it's underutilized. We constructed a special chamber in the tower called the Vault. Most of the room, all except a platform in the center, was intended to house the Brotherhood's treasure. The platform was to serve as the room's safe area, the place where the complex spells were going to be cast, and eventually from where the treasure would be summoned and banished. The chamber was filled with the treasure, and 5 Mysteriarchs took to the platform. Working in concert, they magicked a portal to the Otherwhere. Unlike the simple Create Reality Pocket spell, this portal is permanent. Everything in the chamber, not upon the warded platform in the center, was transported into the Otherwhere. Naturally, the Brotherhood wanted to be able to retrieve their treasure, and they lacked the magical ability to summon it back themselves, so we created a link in the spell, a set of key crystals. Once these crystals were in place, they break the spell, much like a hand can interrupt the beam of sunlight. Everything previously banished to the Otherwhere would materialize and remain until the crystals are removed. We constructed a pedestal inside the warded platform. When the crystals are placed on this pedestal, they will unlock the spell and summon the treasure. The Brotherhood found this solution acceptable, but decided to add a further level of security as well. The treasure chamber was hidden behind a wall covered with carved handprints. Each handprint was inlaid with a different material, usually gemstones, to distinguish them from each other. When these handprints were pressed in a certain order, the wall would open. We constructed the wall based on their specifications and made some further recommendations. The correct sequence that would open the wall did not have to be the same all of the time. We added a method to change the sequence based on the time of the month. Of course, we left the actual entry codes up to the Brotherhood. They wanted the entry codes to remain a secret, even from us. The Brotherhood trusts no one. I believe that had they been powerful enough to eliminate everyone associated with the construction, they would have done so. Only the fact that we intended to leave the Midrealms made the Brotherhood rest easy. I surmise that if they knew that this text existed, they would stop at nothing to destroy it. So the thing that happens in the 5th book with characters we haven't even seen yet, is they go into the vault in the Brotherhood, and they go, I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you an artifact that is probably going to be helpful to you. And it's an item that kind of just causes a lot of mischief and problems throughout the rest of the series, into the rest of book 5 and then 6 and then 7. Because it's a lot of artifacts and treasures that existed before the Sundering even happened. So back when planet Earth was still a thing, and like the Sartan and was this Sartan? I think it was the Sartan. We're creating just a whole bunch of different tools in order to fight against the patrons. That kind of thing. So we got that. So let's do some things with the tapestry. Using magic on the tapestry, we have a couple more runes that were added based on the spell that we just got, which was Create Reality Pocket. Kind of an extended infinity symbol. 4 runes. Now we can establish the link ourselves. Suddenly, the tapestry becomes a window into a scene instead of just a picture of it. It appears as if you walk right into it. Enter the tapestry. You step into the tapestry into a dank dungeon cell. This is the archetype of a dungeon cell, Spartan and devoid of all unnecessary furnishings. There's a glow lamp. We got thin bars. We got a bench. But you can't determine precisely how it is supported. Yeah, it's just kind of floating there against the wall. But of course, it's our sir that's right here. The prisoner is definitely an elf. He's tall, thin, fair, and has the telltale pointed ears. His lips are thin and dry, and he licks them often, mumbling about the inhospitality of humans. He wears traveling clothes, but they can't hide the magical aura you sense. This elf is a wizard. Perhaps he could teach you something, if he didn't hate you so much. That's his traveling clothes? Like, he travels fine.
Why would you think that I want to talk to another dirty, stinking human? Why don't you just leave me alone before you start making me angry?
You don't look like you're in any position to make demands.
I may not be able to leave, but I certainly don't have to waste my time talking with you.
You don't like humans?
You are barbarians. Uncouth, unclean. Fit only to be slaves or dead. Your only hope for civilization is to be conquered by the Elven nation.
Why are you here?
I was unlucky enough to let myself be captured by Trian. I suppose it's better than if the king caught me. He would have executed me for sure. Trian's keeping me alive to get whatever information he can. So far, I've told him nothing, and that's just what you're going to get as well.
So, do you like these accommodations?
What do you think? I'm stuck in an archetypical dungeon cell. The light in the wall never shuts off. I haven't had anything to eat or drink for hours. Oh, what I wouldn't give for some wine right now.
Waste time. What else are you going to do?
Sit here and not talk to you. Why would you think that I...
Alright.
Alright, I'll leave you alone.
Good. Bugger off.
We do need to talk to him, though. So, what if we, wet his whistle?
Ah, it's gooseberry wine.
Wizard rarely accepts the wine jug from you. He sniffs it and takes a tentative sip, tilts the jug back, and takes a few hearty slugs. Afterward, when he's placed it on the bench, he regards you with a much friendlier expression. I want my wine jug back. Dang it.
I guess you're not so bad for a human. it wouldn't hurt to pass a little time talking.
He also gets a little bit more animation than anything else beforehand. Except for Limbeck, I guess.
So, you're a wizard, huh?
Of course I am. I'm only of the 4th house, but it makes me formidable nonetheless. If I hadn't been distracted by that serving wench, Trien would never have gotten the drop on me.
I wouldn't pay too much attention to this, like, oh, he's of the 4th house. It goes, I think it goes between the 1st and the 7th there. So, like, the Mysteriarchs are usually of the 7th house kind of thing. But it really doesn't amount to much in the grand scheme.
If you hate this dungeon so much, can't you use your magic to change it?
Well, if I could get out of these bars, I'd probably douse that glow lamp on the wall. It's impossible to get any sleep with the lamp always shining in my eyes. In order to remove the glow spell that's on it, I'd have to create a shroud of darkness and place it over the lamp, and it's out of reach.
How exactly does that shroud of darkness spell go?
Come here, I'll show you.
He approaches the bars and stands there. Hesitantly, you too approach the bars.
Now, first you need a black cloth. The color is important because black absorbs all light. When you place the prepared cloth over the glowing object, the cloth is going to do just that, absorb the light, albeit to an even greater extent. Then you cast the Shroud of Darkness spell upon it, like so.
His hands cut gracefully through the air, tracing the glowing magic rune structure. You watch, entranced, as the spell takes shape. The wizard completes the structure, it hangs in the air, and you study it intently. Focused on memorizing the spell, you fail to observe the wizard's hand slipping into motion again. Suddenly, his hand grabs yours, he jerks you out of your trance. Another spell hangs in the air. Benignly, the first spell fades away, but the new spell begins to take effect. You were staring at the noon rune structure in confusion, your hand locked in his iron grip, when you notice the tingling sensation spread through your body. A thunderclap later, and you notice that you're looking at the floating spell from the other side. Immediately, the wizard releases your hand, and through the bars, you see him race out of the room, laughing. The spell fades, and you realize that the wizard used his magic to swap positions with you. You are now the prisoner in the cell, and he is free. You drop heavily to the bench. This was supposed to happen. After hours of waiting, Trien walks into the cell. Seeing you sitting on the bench stops him in his tracks. You clear your throat and explain what has transpired. He listens intently and, after a moment of thought, decides to free you. Trien escorts you into his personal chamber. He explains that he was keeping the wizard's secret from the king, so he cannot report his escape. He tells you to forget that you ever saw him, and asks you to leave the same way you entered. Trien walks out the door and locks it behind him. Again, Trien gets no lines. It's way too... how should I put this? Convenient? Just like, okay, well, now we've just let a wizard escape. What kind of ramifications do that have? Especially since we can't report it or do anything about it. But we do get, we'll just go into the spell list there. We do get 2 spells out of the deal. The Create Shroud of Darkness and the Swap spell. For later, of course. Alright. Now, the whole reason we did that was for the book, candle holder, and his spells. That was pretty much it. Otherwise, we're good with Drevlin for right now. Let's head back in. And we don't want to use the steering stone. We want to go back to Drevlin. Now, the thing I would love with this map system is the ability to scroll through it. But that doesn't work very well. It kind of just skips things as we go. So, head into the tunnels. the music is the cue that we actually need to redo the puzzle because it doesn't stay the same way. So we just gotta cast the heat spell again. And we get more runes, so it's much easier to just go into the spell menu in order to cast things. Alright, back to the elf ship. Actually, wait. I skipped by Limbeck. I need to talk to him.
This is much better than the pipe I was using. It's very thoughtful of you to offer it.
He gingerly removes the candle from the straight pipe, hands the pipe over to you to hold, and jams the candle into the holder. Enthralled, he sets it down and on the corner of the table, admiring the holder and completely forgetting about the pipe. So we just got a fourth piece of pipe. And the other thing I forgot is, it's all in Limbeck's room, is we need... So, remembering the figurines, the glowing figurines that are in the ship, we can get rid of the glow. We can do that with the spell that we just picked up from the wizard who we let escape by making a shroud. Except we need a black cloak. We need a black cloak or a black cover. Well, we have a white cover. We could put a shirt over it. So, let's take use of the ink here. It is a big jar, so we can't do anything about that. So let's put the white shirt in the jug and cover it in black ink. It's quick drying. You shove the shirt into the ink jug where it quickly soaks up and quite a bit of black ink. But by the time you've pulled it out, the shirt is completely dry, albeit very black. Quick drying ink, of course. Here's the black shirt. The stains aren't quite as visible now that it's black. Alright, now... Huh, good. I thought I was going to have to do that puzzle again. Now we can go back onto the ship. Going up the stairs. There's our pieces. Now, we have to cast Shroud of Darkness, and we have to do it specifically on the black shirt. So, go into the spell, create a Shroud of Darkness. 1, 2, 3. So it's kind of like a whoop, whoop, whoop. Kind of. Cast it. As you weave the spell around the shirt, the light around you dims, as if the shirt was drawing it in. When the spell has been completed, you can only make out the vague shape of the shirt, but none of its features. It looks like a hole in the air. But there it is. And let's place it on the figures. You drape the black shirt over the glowing figures. The magic of the shroud draws the light from the statuettes into itself until they remain dull and gray. Since it is the magic on the figurines that maintains the glow effect of the gods, the instant the magic disappears, so does the elves' spell. They quickly realize their situation and bolt for the ship. What an animation they are using blurring. The dwarves, seeing their gods without their glow, quickly form a lynch mob. They chase the hapless elves out of the caves, bellowing rather imaginative and graphic threats of violence. The noise causes the sleeping wizard to stir. To keep from being discovered, you dive out of his quarters onto the ship's deck. Alright, now we're in a kind of a position here where best to save, since we have done nothing of the sort yet. Because we have a decision to make here. If we go down, you bump into the group of elves boarding the ship just ahead of the dwarves. The look and surprise on their faces when they see you are almost immediately replaced by expressions of anger. Two of the elves grab your arms while another calls for the ship's wizard. He appears from his quarters and quickly weaves a spell of death, which, on one hand, is a very useful spell to learn. On the other hand, it is a rather fatal way to learn it. Game over. So, there are death situations. They're just a little bit hard to come by. But the nice thing about this is it kind of goes the King's Quest 7 direction, where you can also undo and go back to your previous action and work with that, which is kind of lovely. The thing I don't remember too much is if this actually screws up the point system. So if I die again and undo, does that do a penalty of points? It doesn't. Good. All right, so we can go up, but we bump into the Elven Wizard. He recognizes you're not an elf and does the spell of death again. So we have to go down.
Hide in the storeroom. They'll kill you if they find you here.
He points out a hidden door in the back of the alley off to the west. Something that we can't click on directly.
Now's not the time for idle chatter. You must get into the storeroom. The ship's crew will be here any second, and they won't be pleased to discover you here.
Instead of asking you why you aren't locked up with the rest of the humans, he targets the spell of death at you. Perhaps he was too pressed for time to converse. So even talking with the Duke is the wrong thing to do. We have to get into the storeroom. You hear some scuffling and shouted orders from the galley. Soon the ship breaks away from its moorings and lifts off. A deep voice booms from somewhere near the door that the ship is entering human-controlled space. All lights must be doused and all noise cease. If the humans discover the ship's exact position, it could be taken. So in here, we got a locked box, which we cannot do anything about. Miscellaneous supplies are piled around the room, but aside from the notable exceptions of a chest and another flimsier box, they include nothing of interest. Well, inside of that box, you rip open one of the larger boxes. Inside, you find a strange device with 3 metal prongs, which crackle with electricity. The switch has been wired to its base. You shove the flimsy remains of the box to the side. Which we have to be holding in order to activate it, so let's take it. Carefully, you pick up the electric zinger. It tingles a bit, but doesn't deliver the shock you expected. It looks like an oversized jack. 3 metal prongs protrude at acute angles from its base. A switch has been wired into it. The whole device crackles with energy. So now we can do the special action of activate it. Look at it go! You pull the switch attached to the electric zinger. As soon as the connection is made, the whole contraption flies out of your hands, bouncing off the walls and throwing sparks everywhere. Evidently, the light and sound pouring through the portholes was enough to attract the attention of King Stephen's forces. They surround the ship in mid-flight, board her, and take the captured vessel back to the castle.
Congratulations. You actually succeeded. I didn't expect it, but I am pleased. Andrews and his men are safe. My thanks, friend.
Not only did you get your cousin back safely, but now you have an elven ship. I think you made out pretty well.
Very true. That elven ship will certainly come in handy, especially to infiltrate elven-controlled lands. You've proven your worth.
My pleasure, Your Highness. I did put my life on the line, but it was worth it to serve you.
I certainly hope you aren't being sarcastic. My men gladly lay down their lives for me. That privilege is reward enough for them. I was going to offer something else, but that can be arranged.
Wasn't there something about making it worth my while?
You're correct. I'm not one to forget my promises when it suits me. What do you want?
Like, come on, what is this line here?
Perhaps you could just supply some information.
Certainly. Tell me what you'd like to know.
You relate your experiences on Drevlin and explain that you're looking for an artifact that the Kinsey Winsey may have buried somewhere. If that's true, only the Kinsey Winsey can dig it up.
I'm not sure how I can help you there. Even my learned wizard knows precious little about the Kixie Winsey. There is something I might be able to offer, though. The Kixie Winsey is an ancient Sartan artifact. Only the Sartan knew exactly what it did and how to control it. Since they disappeared ages ago, all that remains are the books and documents they left behind, but they are very scarce. In fact, the only place you can find them is in the Tower of the Brotherhood.
And we heard about that in the book there.
Why is the Brotherhood the only place you can find these documents? Doesn't anyone else have a collection?
A long time ago, private researchers kept their own collections. They soon experienced very fatal accidents, and their collections were appropriated by the Brotherhood. Pretty soon, whenever Sartan artifacts were discovered, they were delivered directly to the tower. Nowadays, the Brotherhood usually employs the researchers outright.
What's the Brotherhood?
The Brotherhood is a guild of assassins. They pride themselves on the completeness of their library. They've gathered information from every corner of Arianus. This includes all of the Sartan artifacts they could find. No other collection exists anywhere. If documents exist that discuss the function of the Kixie-Winzy, they're in their tower.
Where is the tower located?
That's a problem. The tower is located in Skirvash, a smuggler's haven that lies on the border of Elven and human lands. No nation governs that city. It's completely lawless. The Brotherhood has an iron grip on the place. Neither we nor the elves have been able to get a toehold.
Neutral territory.
Skirvash is a haven for criminals and cutthroats. It wouldn't be a problem, once there, to go about your business unnoticed. People go there for the anonymity. The problem is getting you there in the first place. Currently, the elves control space around that area. I can't sneak anyone in or out. Any ship with the markings of the royal fleet is attacked before it even gets near the city.
What about that elven ship I just delivered to you? Couldn't that sneak me into Skirvash?
Yes, that's true. We've never had our hands on an elven ship before. They certainly wouldn't be expecting it, especially so soon after its capture. They'd have no reason to stop it from reaching Skirvash.
The fun thing about it is that the Dragon Wing, the ship we're going to be using to travel between the realms, is an elven ship. So overall, this kind of isn't necessary.
Very well. It looks like my only alternative. Let's get going.
Very well. I will staff the elven ship with my own
Hey, who's
soldiers.
the king here?
They will fly the ship to Skirvash and wait there while you search for your documents. When you have completed your business, they will escort you back to Drevlin. I will assume that this clears me of my debt to you. I wish you luck, friend.
Again, Stephen, you are the king. You don't have to assume that this clears. You can just say that this clears. We get access to our third location. You leave the king's castle, reboard the elven frigate, and discover that it's already manned by soldiers from the royal army. A no-nonsense sergeant greets you and signals the others to lift off. Within a few hours, you leave behind all signs of human habitation on any of the floating land masses. The only ships you see are of elven design. They let you pass unmolested, mistaking your ship for a member of their fleet. Soon, the sergeant points out a dark city on one of the floating islands. The ship glides towards it, but lands a couple of miles away.
We don't want to answer any questions at the regular port, such as why King Stephen's men are flying an elven frigate. Better you get a little exercise and walk into town. Come back when you've finished your business, and make it quick. Just being around elven space makes me nervous, but waiting so close to the Brotherhood is downright terrifying.
And so, we are here. A whole group of soldiers is gathered in the small corners to play cards. You can't even fit through the door. The slave galley, it's empty now, but filled with King Stephen's men, and the ship is in motion. Otherwise, nothing particularly, except for the storage room, because there's still this strong box. So eventually, hopefully, we'll get a key for that. But for now, nothing much else. Before I jump into Skirvash, I just wanted to look at it. A dark city, no bigger than a large village, sits nestled in jagged mountains. Hard to believe that this is where such power, that of the Brotherhood, is wielded. They look almost intentionally placed around the city for the protection they provide. There's technically in Skirvash on the way to where the Brotherhood is the forest they're supposed to be traveling to. But for now, this is going to be where we stop. After doing that, pretty much the rough first arc of that whole thing, we still have the pipe situation that we have to finish up with. But I'm going to leave Skirvash and going into the Brotherhood and everything like that for next time. So that's roughly what we're kind of doing with Deathgate, is kind of going through each of the worlds. And if you look up reviews of this game, they'll kind of notice and point out that Arianus is the biggest of the worlds that you kind of go to. And it kind of just goes from a very wide exploration kind of area from the very beginning, and then it just kind of gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as you get towards the end, where like Abarak and Celestra and everything else that you go to, it just kind of ramps up. Like the pacing is kind of weird. So that'll be it for us today. Next time, we're going to head back and finish up with Arianus, with Skirvash, and finding the seal to our next place, which, if you're going by the order of the books, we'll head to Prion next time. That'll be for next week, though. And hopefully, unfortunately, I was supposed to do this yesterday. It didn't happen, though. My voice is very flat, and I can definitely hear that I've used it a lot. So I'm going to keep giving it a rest, because I kind of need it this week. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And I will see you next time for more as we go. Hopefully you got something interesting out of this. I'll see you next time, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.